I personally believe they adopted me just for it to look good, because in the Adventist world, they want you to be perfect. They want you to look good. They want to hold you up on a pedestal. And so the adoption and like the miracle of adoption is very much that narrative, which fits for the Adventist church very well. So I think I was adopted just to look good for their family photos. It's like it started very young, I would say. Around like 7, 8.
So he was actively using God and the religion as a scapegoat or as a reason to do what he's doing.
Yeah, he would find like weird passages in the Bible, and now like thinking of it, like I don't know if some of these were even in the Bible, but he would pull stories and show that it was allowed. Purity culture, I feel like, at least for me, I didn't hear it a ton until I was older.
Okay.
But when I was older and it was brought up, it was a lot of my former father saying like, well, we're just getting you ready, or so you know. Or it was, well, you're still technically a virgin because I'm your father, so this doesn't really count. And God's telling me to do this to you. Yeah, I had kind of reached a breaking point mental health wise. I had tried telling teachers that clearly didn't work. CPS, that didn't work. I had told one of my pastors, she was a female pastor, which is very unheard of in the Adventist church, I know. And I was done.
Lay down my autonomy.
After that, it got very dark very quickly.
Hey, my name is Shalise Ansola, and this is Cults to Consciousness, where we discuss leaving high-demand religions or organizations and finding healing and independence through awareness and true individual sovereignty. If you're only listening on those podcast platforms and you would prefer to see our faces, you could come on over to YouTube at Cults to Consciousness, where you could join in on the conversation. It's the best way to support the podcast listening on YouTube, when you can like, share, comment, leave those words of encouragement for our guests who are bravely sharing their stories. These are real people telling us their deepest, darkest moments. So we love that you guys always rally around our guests and make them feel loved and supported. Today's guest, another recommendation from Melissa. She's awesome. And she also has a huge following on TikTok telling her story about leaving Seventh-Day Adventism. She was adopted into a family, ran away at 18, and we're going to hear all the ins and outs of her story and what it was like leaving the SDA. So thanks so much for joining us, Charlotte Hayes.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
So happy to have you here. I was scrolling through your TikTok. You definitely have a lot of stories to tell. And just the whole leaving, changing your identity thing is so incredible. It's such a hard process, too. And it is so empowering. I love that you changed your name. I changed my last name for similar reasons. And it's just such a beautiful thing to take back your identity.
It is, yeah. It helped with healing, oddly enough, but yeah, it was amazing.
So let's start from the beginning then. Give everyone a little bit of an idea of how you were brought into this family and what part of the world they were in.
Yeah, I was adopted from Khabarovsk, Russia in early 2001, shortly after 9/11. Technically before 9/11 happened, still stuck in Russia, and then came to the US after flights reopened.
So your adoptive family was already in Seventh-Day Adventism. So you were technically born into it because you were only a year and a half when you were adopted?
Yep, that would be correct. Yep. They were the only Adventists in the family, so all of the extended family members, they were the only ones who had converted to being Adventists.
Okay. So where did they live, or where did you end up living and growing up?
Ended up living in Gainesville, Virginia. Very small town. There's like one main street, and it's like 3 tiny towns kind of clustered together.
When I was talking to Melissa, she was explaining how there are different pockets of Adventism in the world, and some of them are more kind of a closed circuit where you have your own hospitals and your own schools and all of that. Was that the case for where you lived, or were you kind of disconnected from all of that?
In Gainesville, we didn't necessarily have our own, like, Seventh-Day Adventist hospital. I don't think even at the time we had our own Seventh-Day Adventist church. We always had to drive, like, 45 minutes to an Adventist church.
Okay, then that's probably a much different experience because you were isolated in some ways. Now, I know with some religions, it's it always depends on where you live of the experience that you get, which is why you have so many different brands and colors and variations of the same religion. So I found that when I moved to Portland out of Utah as a Mormon, there was a lot more pressure to be perfect or to be this example because there weren't a lot of Mormons around. Did you feel that same type of pressure?
I definitely did. I mean, it was plastered all in our house versus everywhere. Even like the school that I went to, so like early school was very Christian or Adventist related because again, there wasn't an Adventist church local. So my first education, I believe it was preschool, which was just Christian. And then the Adventist school had opened, and so they sent me to an Adventist for my first grade year.
So, did you notice a difference? Obviously, you're really young and you probably don't know any different, but was there a stark difference in the schooling system itself as far as how much religion was infused into it?
Oh, yes. Adventist school, it was infused into everything. It was involved, like, when we were learning about the planets, it was involved with religion and, like, how God created it and not whatever science tells you.
That's actually interesting, the planet thing. Can you give me a little lesson on Adventism?
It was first grade. I just remember them just being like, God created the animals, God created the plants, God created you, God created XYZ, and it just was never, this is how the planets may have really actually formed.
Okay, I get it. Because I wondered if there was any interesting theology like Mormonism has, where you can get your own planet or you go. It's the whole thing with the planets and
That
Mormonism.
sounds insane. What?
Yeah. She's like, hold on, wait a second.
I'm
Now
like,
you
I kind
go.
of want my own planet. That would be really nice. I don't know.
That's what I thought growing up as a kid. I was stoked to have my own planet. So the whole idea that Joseph Smith brought forward was that you can become a god one day if you follow all of my rules. If you do everything you're supposed to, you can go to the highest level of heaven, you can create your own planet, and with your celestial partner, you will repopulate, or not repopulate, you will populate this planet with all of these spirit children. And basically, it's going to start all over, just like how we got here. So, we got here from a heavenly father and a heavenly mother who followed the rules, got to the celestial kingdom, and created their own planet. Obviously, that's very blasphemous to assume that we could just become God or goddesses. And so they've recently reversed it or pretended like they never taught it, which all of us are like, wow, that was the main cell. You can't just pretend it didn't.
You're like, that's what kept us going.
Oh, we were ready to be gods and goddesses. What they didn't really tell you as much was that once you got there, you would end up practicing polygamy if you made it to the highest level of heaven. They kind of like steered away from that, even though it's still a teaching, very much so. So that was the caveat. But
So they shame
anyway,
it now, but don't shame it then.
yeah, it's something that Joseph Smith thought up a long time ago when he first started the church. And then when, because he brought polygamy back to the earth, and then okay, we're getting off track. We're talking about you here,
That's okay. I
Charlotte.
thought the Adventist church was the crazy one. I think you might have just beat me with just that alone.
You know what? There's some weird stuff going on back in the day. But okay, back to you. So you're going to this specific school and it's very religious. Are you allowed to make friends outside of Adventism, especially if it's a small town and there's not very many of you?
I definitely did because I did like ballet, tap. So I had some of those friends, but I wouldn't say they were ever really close friends, and I spent the majority of my time with other Adventist.
So let's talk about your family unit in the sense of what you were expected to do. Like how strict were they as a household within the religious context?
Extremely strict, I would say. I wasn't allowed, I mean, with the Adventists, there's the sundown to sundown rule. So it's Friday night, which is Vespers, into Saturday night for the Sabbath. So that's like God's time. And so sundown to sundown, nobody was allowed to really be on their phones. TV wasn't really an option unless it was like Narnia, because that was somehow, I mean, it is slightly religious. The undertones are religious. Sundown. I mean, even when I was older, like I wasn't able to do any of the high school football games or any of the dances. So like prom, homecoming, banquet, wasn't able to do any of those because they always landed on a Friday night or a Saturday. Same with some sports teams. Couldn't do swim team because most meets are on Saturday. So a lot of those things I was restricted in what I could and couldn't do.
How did you feel with that growing up? Did you feel the restriction, or like what was your mindset? Were you also really deeply involved in the doctrine at some point?
At that point, I would say that I didn't know any different, and I didn't really, at that age, didn't really have the brain to really think for myself. Like, I definitely did, but at that time in my life, like, there was no reason for me to question anything that I was taught.
What would you say was the hardest part growing up in that world?
The secrets.
The secrets. Okay, spill the
Mhm.
tea. What kind of
It's
secrets are we
very
talking about?
The church is very secretive, like, you don't tell people unless you want them to know, and it also gossips. So, like, we have a thing in the Adventist church called, like, call to prayer, or garden of prayer is another one, where it's, like, middle of the church sermon, they'll pause and they'll, like, get prayer requests from people in the church, and we will say what we need prayer for, but I would just say that's Adventist gossip, where you get to hear what other people are going through and then you get to gossip about it. Or it's like, even if you know somebody is going through something, they'll spill it and somebody else will share what maybe those people weren't wanting to share.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all in the but it's because we love you and we want to
It's all
help
because
you,
we love
right?
you and we want to help you. I mean, my former father had gotten like it was either a knee replacement or a hip replacement. He's had both on both legs, but he had gotten a surgery done. He didn't want the church to know. Even though we were in the church, he was with us on crutches. And someone during the Garden of Prayer was like, "Oh, we just want to have like send out some prayer to her former father. Like, this is what he's been going through. Please give him some love." And we ended up like leaving right after Garden of Prayer. He was very pissed that it even got shared.
Is this because medical attention is looked down on, or what was the reason?
I mean, when some of the ways that they talk and like some of the things that they believe, you would think that medical attention is looked down on, even though the Adventist Church owns many hospitals.
Yeah.
Nothing really makes sense.
I was just having this conversation with Rosie yesterday when we recorded with her because she was explaining that if you're not healthy, it's because you're not faithful enough. But then I was like, well, how does that work if they have a whole bunch of hospitals? Are these medical staff just not giving people the attention they need because of faith healing? And she's like, I don't know. It's confusing.
It's so confusing. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Everyone is different. I feel like with the Adventist Church, and you're correct that there are pockets where some people have a more lenient growing up. Some people have it way more strict, like Melissa did. Honestly, it's just where you are and how your family wants to do it. Everybody is slightly different, so it's confusing. Some people drink, some people don't, some people eat meat, some people don't.
What was it like in your family?
We did not eat meat because I was adopted, and a lot of the things that happened to me growing up, they kept me strictly raw vegan. And everyone
Whoa.
else in my house could eat as normal. I
What?
could eat other things, like when I was like out with extended family members. So it's like if I was out with family members, I could have some more of those normal foods, but I was never allowed to say that at home, behind closed doors, it was raw vegan only.
Was that for religious reasons?
I'm control, maybe.
Because I was a vegan for 5 years, so I know what it takes to be vegan. Raw vegan is next level. It's
Raw
really
vegan is
intense.
like a whole other like stratosphere. Yeah.
Yeah. And not to say that for some people it works. I think it could. For a lot of people it doesn't though, because it takes a lot to get enough of the nutrients that you need. It's possible, but you have to be really diligent. So did you feel like you were getting enough nutrition?
I did not. A lot of people even express that. So like teachers growing up would make remarks to them or to me. Classmates would say something to me for being too small. At the end of the day, that was my former mother's doing, and that is what she wanted. She wanted to hear those comments of me being small. She wanted me to be like deathly thin.
Why do you think that is?
more control.
So she was just a sadistic person in that way.
Yes.
Okay. What are some of your earliest memories being brought into this family? Did you feel an overall sense of love and happiness, like they truly wanted you there? Or do you feel like, I know in some cases, and this is horrible, some kids are adopted just to be exploited. Did you feel any sort of love growing up initially?
It's weird because it depends on what your definition of love is. I think as a child, it looked like love to me, when now with an outside lens, it was anything but love.
Yeah. Well, if it's all you ever knew, you don't really have anything to compare it to.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you're probably just grasping at anything, trying to feel that connection. I mean, children need connection to thrive and to survive, basically. So I think it's true that a lot of kids who are in abusive situations try to make anything feel like acceptance and love just for that survival sense.
Yes, that is correct.
So, what are some of your earliest memories growing up in that home?
It's interesting with trauma is like your brain almost turns into Swiss cheese with the little holes
Yeah.
through it. So it's like there's always a lot of like blanks. But then it's interesting that as I'm getting older and the more experiences that I have now, or if something even like reminds me of something, a memory or one of those Swiss cheese holes get filled.
Which can be a lot too to uncover and to remember and to be put back in those situations, especially when you're not expecting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Earliest memories that I remember, it especially with, like, childhood sexual abuse, like, it started very young, I would say, around, like, 7, 8. It started very slow, so it started a lot with, like, touching, hands being grabbed very tightly, so that's kind of, like, how it had started for me.
And did you want to say which family member this was?
Yeah, my former father was the one who did this.
Ah, I'm so sorry. That's so awful, especially when you purposely bring a child into your life through adoption, a helpless child who just needs a home, and then you exploit them. It really just makes me sick that there are people out there who would do something like that.
I personally believe they adopted me just for it to look good, because in the Adventist world, they want you to be perfect. They want you to look good. They want to hold you up on a pedestal. And so the adoption and like the miracle of adoption is very much that narrative, which fits for the Adventist church very well. So I think I was adopted just to look good for their family photos.
So, in that way, did you ever feel like a real part of the family? It seems like they were purposely excluding you,
Yes.
even within the home.
I don't think I ever felt like a full family member. I definitely did during, like, family reunions and different things like that, but, like, at home in closed doors, it was constantly like, "Why am I here?
Yeah.
Because none of this fits." When we're out with people, you love me, or at least you show that you love me, but then behind closed doors, it is the complete opposite.
Did your former mother know about the sexual abuse?
Yes. So I would say like rape started a bit older, but she was aware of it. There were times where she would watch in the doorway.
What?
Or she would, after my former father was finished, she would take me to the bathroom and watch me shower with a clear shower curtain. hmm
What the hell?
Yeah.
So she was really in on it. I mean, there's
Yes.
no other way to put it.
hmm
Because there's a difference of being too afraid to say anything or stand up to your husband if you are also in an abusive, fear situation.
Then there's active participation.
Exactly.
Yep.
I mean, how did you feel as a child knowing that both of your parents, both of your caregivers were completely failing you? Did you have any adult around you who you felt like you could confide in and talk to about this?
At the time, I didn't know it was wrong. Because when it's so normalized from such a young age and you're kept in such a bubble, like the majority of my friends were Adventists, and then I'm being told growing up to not tell anyone, or something will happen to me or something to them. So it like instills fear in you for like the safety of your family, for
Yeah.
yourself, and for how it's going to affect that family image. You just stay quiet.
Yeah.
And at that age, like, because it had happened for so long, the leap from just like touching and grabbing to full-fledged rape wasn't really much of a jump at all.
Really?
And it didn't seem wrong.
I can see how that would make sense in your head as a child when both parents are, no one's trying to stop it. No one's having this conversation with you. I know that within the church there are extreme purity culture rules. How did that clash in your head, knowing what they're teaching you at church and then knowing what's going on at home?
What's interesting is purity culture, I feel like, at least for me, I didn't hear it a ton until I was older.
Okay.
But when I was older and it was brought up, it was a lot of my former father saying, like, well, we're just getting you ready, or so you know. Or it was, well, you're still technically a virgin because I'm your father, so this doesn't really count. And God's
Oh my
telling me
hell.
to do this to you.
So he was actively using God and the religion as a scapegoat or as a reason to do what he's doing.
Yeah, he would find, like, weird passages in the Bible, and now, like, thinking of it, like, I don't know if some of these were even in the Bible, but he would pull stories and show that it was allowed?
Like, I mean, the first one that comes to my head is Lot and his daughters, but they got him drunk and technically assaulted him.
Technically, yes, but in the Adventist world, like, it's always the woman's fault.
So, is that a verse you remember him using?
That one had gotten mentioned once or twice, but, I mean, everything else, I think they were just, like, random things that he would say meant what he wanted them to mean versus what they actually meant.
Yeah. And this is a tangent for another day, but I just have to say this is one of the issues that I have with people taking the Bible as a guidebook, a literal guidebook, because there are stories that can make anything justified and you can just cherry pick what you want. You can make meaning out of anything that you read in there. And I think it's just so dangerous to take it in such a literal way.
It's the cherry picking for me that bothers me a ton. People will be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, technically that was Old Testament. Like, we don't really touch on that anymore." They'll just be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, that was then and this is now," or like, "This is now and this is how it should have been." And it's just like you're pulling random things and times change, things are different, and a lot of people don't take the time to actually break a verse apart and look into the meaning of what things actually truly mean.
Right. Well, like the context of the people who wrote it in that time period from a
Mhm.
historical perspective, not even a religious perspective. There's so much value to be had from that
Oh, yeah.
and understanding why they were writing what they were writing and what things meant at the time. But anyways, that's a whole thing for another day. I just had to say
I
that. It
mean
drives me
I mean,
crazy.
the Bible was written by, like, 50 many people over at least a 2,000-year span. How are we supposed to believe everything in it?
I get that. And I understand that people can pull some beautiful meaning from it and things that help them in their life.
Yeah,
That I'm just
absolutely.
personally not one of those people. But anyways,
Yep.
your former father using this against you, making you feel like it's normal or it's expected, but then also instilling that fear in you, don't tell anyone or you'll be in trouble. I mean, that's so contradictory and confusing. Did you have any gut feeling to wanna tell a friend or to see if anyone else was experiencing this, or were you just too ashamed and afraid?
I remember there was one sleepover, and I had begged and begged and begged for this sleepover because I was never allowed to go to other people's houses or, like, for any sleepovers or anything like that. People always had to come to my house. And so I had finally gotten the okay to go and do this sleepover. My friend's dad, when we were going to bed, he came in, said goodnight. He left the room, closed the door, which one closing the door would never have been allowed in my home. Closed doors was never allowed. He came in, said goodnight, left, and did not come back. And I thought that was just kind of like a one-time, like, fluke. Like, he was just, like, putting on, like, a show.
Yeah,
Because at that time, because it was so normal for me, I kind of thought it was normal for everyone else.
right.
I remember that next day asking her, being like, "Does your" so, like, last night, like, when your dad left, but, like, does he, like, ever come back in later? And she was like, "No, he's never?" And that, I think, was, like, the first time where things started to just feel a little bit more wrong than normal.
How old were you when that happened? Do you remember?
I had to have been at least in my teens.
Okay, like early teens, like 12, 13,
14, 15 maybe?
14. Yeah, I mean, I asked because that really gives a lot of context as to how much they were shielding you from knowing the
Mhm.
truth. And I mean, that's pretty old to have that first realization of what was going on. They were doing a great job of keeping you isolated and afraid.
And at that
Wow.
point, because I had gone to the Adventist schools originally for that first grade year, but then after that, I went to another Christian school, and then after that one, for second grade, starting at third grade through eighth grade, I went to the local public middle school.
How did that affect you? Did you start to
Oh, it was
understand the huge
whiplash.
differences? It was whiplash?
It was whiplash because you're getting yanked from like a super conservative private school where it's like one classroom in a public high school is probably the amount of students that were in the entire school.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a big shock.
It's a huge shock. And then you're filled with so many other classes. There's so many more faces. There's teachers. There's new lunch rules where you can just sit at a lunch table where it's like at a public school, I could have gone to the library. Whereas with the private school, it's more in the classroom. Like you eat in your classroom.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How did that affect you in your dietary restrictions placed by your mother? Were you allowed to eat regular school lunch or did you have to bring?
Packed lunches.
Man, so you had to watch everyone around you eating that cafeteria pizza and
One of my best friends, she would like let me try things like off and on. So like the school's pizza sticks, I've tried those. Oh my god, those I would do anything for those
did that
again.
wreck your stomach?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, my stomach was not happy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine. Okay, so public school, how did that affect your social ability? Because you've kind of been isolated in this world. Did you have a lot of social anxiety of trying to talk to people, or did you even try because you're not really supposed to have friends outside of the church?
I definitely had social anxiety, and I still do have social anxiety. I mean, I don't think I would have picked social media content creating if I didn't have social anxiety because with social media content creating, it's just me and my phone, and there's nobody actually watching me.
I know, I feel the same way. Because when I
Yep.
started, sorry to like just
No,
bulldoze your
do it.
conversation, but I'm like, I get it because when I started doing social media influencing stuff on Instagram, everyone was like, "Oh, you're so extroverted." I'm like, "No, I'm really not though. It's just me talking to my phone."
Oh, I know. Like I'm extroverted with the people that I really truly know. And then if I were to go to like a party or like a cookout or something else outside the house, I'm timid.
Exactly.
Like I don't know you. And I mean it also makes it awkward like growing up the way that I did like with my story, if I were to go out and do things with friends or like out in public with meeting new people always want to know. So like, so who are you? They always ask that question. So who are you? What's your
Yeah.
story? Tell me about yourself. And it's like, do you want the PG version or like the rated X version?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and I think it's a very real consequence of growing up in a cult that people don't necessarily recognize, and we've brought it up a few times on the show because that's one of my pet peeves too, is I hate telling people I'm from Utah because then we always talk about Mormonism, then it's just like takes over the
The
conversation.
immediate question is, oh, I guess you're Mormon.
Yeah, it's so I get that of just wanting to have the peace that you have without having to dive into some traumatic event with a complete stranger, but at the same time, you don't wanna withhold and lie, and so it's like a tricky balance of trying to figure out how much do I wanna disclose to this random person? How much do they deserve to know? How much do they actually want to know, or are they just being polite?
I know. And that's such a line. Like it's so blurry to walk because I mean, you want to give an honest answer, but then at the same
Mhm.
time, like your honest answer is somebody's worst nightmare. So it's
Yeah. Yeah, I find that with the channel too when people ask, "What do you do?" Interview cult survivors, and then they ask follow-up questions. I'm like, "How much bandwidth do you have for
yeah.
this
Yeah.
conversation?"
It's gonna go back to you and why you're doing it.
Yeah, but anyway, back to you. So social anxiety in this new school, did you settle in? Did you feel like you would prefer to be in a public setting versus the private school?
I would say that the public school felt a lot less safe.
Really?
And that feels crazy for me to be saying The private school, we didn't have active shooter drills. We didn't have doors that were locked. So when I switched into public school, and I think like the first week that I was there, we had an active shooter drill through a lockdown drill. And my brain is like, why do I have to think about this here when I didn't have to think about it there? Yeah, we didn't have one drill.
And it makes you wonder, should they have had drills at your other school, or
I think they have now started because there was a Seventh-Day Adventist shooting at a school, I believe, just this past year.
oh my gosh. Yeah, it's such a scary world that we live in, and it's so sad that we have to be thinking about that. I mean, I'm terrified to put my kids in school. You just never know what could happen.
Yeah, I've thought about it, like, later in life, if I decide to have kids, I'm like, do I want to just homeschool? Or, like, do I want to,
Yeah.
like, what? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrifying. But at the same time, like, you don't want to stop your kid from living.
Sure. Yeah, of course. And you don't want to pluck them out of society and make them feel weird and outcasted either. Not to say that's every homeschooler's experience, but it is a majority, I would say, from, well, at least for the people that I talk to. So, with that, with this big scary world, did that further cement in your brain, I do need to stay Adventist because there is a big scary world out there that's clearly trying to hurt us?
It definitely did, but at the same time, like, switching over to public definitely, like, exposed me to more options.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have to just be Adventist because nobody in here is Adventist. I was the only Adventist in my public school. Like, I don't think most people, when you say that you grew up Adventist, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. They don't know about it. This church is massive, and yet it's like one of the most under talked about church.
That's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that because they truly don't want people to convert? Or, I mean, what's the reason for the secrecy, really?
I have no idea. No idea. I mean, with Mormons, you see them going like door to door. You see JWs going door to door. But I mean, with Adventists, I have not once ever seen an Adventist like missionary going to a door to offer up their religion. But I mean, they do a lot of like out of the country missions, so like to Africa, to Ethiopia, to a lot of like other countries, but never really in country.
I definitely want to cover it more. I think there were over 500 comments in our last video that came out 3 days ago of everyone's like, finally, we're talking about this. So many people are like,
So
that was
fun.
mine. I've been waiting for this to drop for so long.
Yeah, because nobody talks about it.
Well, here we are. Thank you for volunteering as tribute.
Awesome.
These teen years of yours, they were pretty tumultuous. There was a lot of things going on that were causing you to be like, okay, I need to get out of here. In fact, part of this was trying to get the authorities involved in your case, right? And nothing happened, nothing came from it.
Yes, that would be correct. CPS started getting involved in high school. I had done a 1-year stint at Shenandoah Valley Academy, SVA. It's a Adventist boarding school in Newmarket, Virginia. And then after that year, I switched back to public. But during that public school year, the teachers started noticing marks on my body. They had seen carpet burns on the back of my arms from being dragged on a carpet.
Oh my gosh.
They had noticed, even my freshman year at the boarding school, like they had noticed I came to school with like a pretty good gash on the center of my forehead from being hit into the corner of a wall, but I had told them that I tripped and cornered my bunk bed.
With that, people started noticing, and did they call the authorities? Did they ask you about it first, or did they just go ahead and call?
Yeah, so the public school, they talked to me first, like a teacher, my American Sign Language teacher, she had pulled me out into the hallway and was like, something's going on, like you need to tell us because you continuously come to school with marks on your body and it's getting to a point where like your excuses just aren't matching up and today you have a black eye. Like you didn't just do whatever you're gonna say that you did. And I was like, oh no, no, no. I like tripped, I hit a doorknob, it's fine. And she was like, that is a big fat lie. But at the same time, like they can only go off of what you're saying. They can't make assumptions, but they can report. And because of it, like, they still did report to CPS. And that was apparently like this whole day long process for them. I didn't know that it was an all day process. I just knew that I went back to class, and then, like, I would say like midday, I had gotten called back to the main office, and they were like, so this is what's happening. We need to talk with you. So, like, I was talking with the principal, not the principal, the vice principal, my sign language teacher, and one other teacher in the office talking about what happened. And I'm just in the corner like, no, I tripped and hit a doorknob, I swear. Because I had been so conditioned over years to not ever tell anyone what was going on. And the fear for my life at that moment, if I told, it was gonna be bad if I did.
Did they ever come to your house and talk to your former parents?
They did, mainly because of one statement that I had made when I was talking with the sign language teacher. There was at one point where she was really just honing in and was not giving me a break from saying that it was just a doorknob. I was like, what you think happened is probably true. Like, I didn't want to say, yes, I'm being hit at home, I'm being raped at home. I didn't want to say anything. But I figured that if I phrased it just enough, that would give them something to work on, and that is what launched the CPS investigation.
I mean, I'm even afraid to ask this. Did that make it worse at home?
Once I made that statement to my sign language teacher and went to the vice principal's office and was, like, talking with them, I was backpedaling because I knew that, like, once CPS got involved, it was gonna be rough for me at home. So I immediately was, like, taking it back, and I'm like, no, I didn't mean that. What I meant to say was I tripped and hit a doorknob. And they were like, well, we know that's not true, but also we can't do much with you not saying anything. And so they had launched the CPS investigation, but I still had to go home with my father. So they had called and picked to have him pick me up.
Oh my gosh.
And this was the last day before winter break. So I was going to be alone with him for 2 weeks. No school. So they were terrified. They were terrified. And I've spoken with those teachers and the vice principal since, and they've told me, they were like, we were absolutely terrified to send you home, but we didn't have anything to keep you.
Oh my gosh. There has to be. So, from your perspective, how could the system change to actually help children who are afraid for their lives to say anything?
I don't know. I personally believe that if CPS had come to my school and spoken with me directly there, alone, with a female, without my father present, I think I would have been a lot more open. But at the same time, like, I just think of all the conditioning that I've had, and I also don't know if that would have been true. If I would have been at that time ready and willing to open up.
Yeah, it just seems like they hand you right back to the abuser, the perpetrator, on a platter, telling the perpetrator that you kind of told. Of course, it's going to be a worse situation for you. And I don't know if the answer is not calling the parent and tipping them off, but I don't know. It just seems like a horrible situation that they had to just hand you back over.
It was rough. Yeah. And that drive home with my former father, like, he was screaming, yelling, got home more screaming. He told my former mother what had happened and, like, what was going on, just constant screaming and yelling. And CPS, for the entire course of my winter break, which was about 2 weeks, CPS did not come until January instead of the same day or next day. So I had to just wait. And then when they did come, they didn't interview me alone. My former father was in the room. He had his hand, like, on my shoulder, digging his thumb into my back as a silent warning of, like, you don't say anything. So of course I'm going to say again, I tripped and hit a doorknob. And then they were like, okay, we believe you, but could you show us which doorknob? So I purposely show them my bedroom door, which had a handle, thinking that would at least not match my face.
Yeah.
It did not work. And yet they believed it. and left.
I don't understand. And we've had on people who, same situation, CPS gets involved and they're trying to leave hints. And they just, it seems like they don't have a brain in their head to
They don't.
understand trauma, to understand the fear, to understand the programming. It's like, hello, who is training these people?
Yeah,
Because
they
clearly
did
there's
nothing.
something wrong. Clearly you're missing something, and clearly you're making it worse. So I don't know what needs to happen to reform the system, but I feel like survivors like you, or survivors like anyone who the system has failed, they just need to have some sort of training. Like, this is how you deal with someone who is being abused, who is too afraid to speak up,
Mhm.
who is clearly in the hands of a perpetrator. They're just, I don't know. I'm not well versed in that whole system, and I'm sure they have a whole bunch of red tape they have to go through to,
Protocols,
yeah, I'm sure, but something has to change.
absolutely. It's a nightmare for them, and I get that. And they're restricted by so much like protocol, the red tape,
Yeah.
and guidelines on what they have to follow. So after I had left at 18, I still had my social worker's number on and her business card. I still have it to this day. And I called her. I was on hold. She answered the line, and I just immediately went, "This is my name. This was the date that you came to my home. You effed up." And then I just like hung up. I was pissed.
Did she
Yeah.
call back?
Nope. Nope.
What? Oh,
Never. Never
I
got a
feel
call
like
back.
that was her chance to be like, I'm so sorry. What could I have done better?
I know. But at the same time, like, I hung up immediately after I said you effed up, and I
Yeah,
just
but she could have
hung up.
called back.
She could have called back, absolutely. But yeah, I don't think I would have been able to accept an apology at that point.
Yeah.
Because I was just too much filled with rage on, like, how can you mess this up so badly? Like, you
Yeah.
put me right back in the lion's den.
And I'm sure there was a part of you that was thinking, this might be my chance of escaping.
Yeah. Yep.
On top of all of this, something that we haven't touched on yet that I do feel like is an important part of your story is within purity culture, you're learning about abstinence, whatever, man and woman should only lie together. Meanwhile, you're having these realizations that you are attracted to women. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to know? I get so clammy.
You're fine. So at what age did you recognize that you weren't attracted to men? Meanwhile, you're getting this very strong messaging from the church about how you are expected to act when you get older.
Yeah, my former mother would watch Grey's Anatomy, it's still running. I was very young when I first saw clips of it. I would sneak into my parents' room and kind of hide a little bit behind the fireplace. I had a weird layout of a room, so I was safe on the other side of it. Very quietly, I would watch some Grey's while she was watching it. And so Grey's Anatomy is the first time that I even saw a woman with another woman as a relationship. So Callie and Arizona in Grey's Anatomy, they were dating, they had a kid together, and that was the first realization. I didn't know what the word lesbian was. I didn't know what the word gay or queer was. I didn't know any of that. I just knew that what they had, I liked, and I wanted to see more of that, and that something in me felt right with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then didn't you have situations with your former mother of her expressly saying that this is wrong?
Yes, we would, even in public, like, we would go to, like, Walmart for getting groceries. There was a lesbian couple in the aisles getting their own thing, doing their own thing, not minding anyone else. And she would look at me and she would be like, "What they're doing is wrong. They're gonna go to hell. They're never gonna be saved. That is an abomination right there. And I want you to have nothing to ever to do with that. Don't have friends like that. Don't involve yourself with that ever." So she grabbed my hand very tightly and we walked and went to a different aisle.
Did you know at this point that you had those feelings?
Yes. At that point I knew that I was gay, and at that point I had learned through my public school, you learn things, that I was queer.
What did that do to your mental state, knowing that just in another way, in another roundabout way, or direct way, not roundabout way, that you were not what they wanted you to be, which could also put you in a further dangerous situation?
Yeah, it just became another secret. And at that point, secrets just become part of you. Like, you don't know anything different than secrets. You're used to just keeping things to yourself and not saying things, except this was something that I had to keep from my parents, which made it almost easier in a way. Like, I could kind of tell other people. Even in school, like, some of my public school friends, I would, like, mention and be like, "Oh, like, I really like their relationship." And, like, that was just, like, me expressing it in, like, the smallest of ways.
With all of this going on, you hit a breaking point and you realize, oh, wait, before we get there, I wanted to talk about your boarding school a little bit
Yeah.
because I feel like there are definitely some stories there being boarded specifically at an Adventist school your freshman year.
Freshman year, yes.
And what was the decision to put you in that school? I feel like that's off character from what I know about your former parents to actually allow you to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it was definitely off their, usual, for sure. They sent me and let me go. I wanna say let me, because they sent my brother, but they let me go. Um, so I had gotten a gymnastics scholarship, and so I had gone and wanted to go there because I had seen that my brother at the time had loved his time, so I had also wanted to go.
So what was it like?
I would say even stricter than my church at home. I mean, they had the weirdest rules. The skirts for church, if you were to wear a skirt to church, it had to be at least and no shorter than 2 inches above the knee. But if you were to wear your school skirt uniform to class, that had to be to the knee. Which you would think that you would want those two things switched, be
Yeah.
more modest for church and slightly less, like 2 inches less modest for class.
Yeah. That is weird.
Couldn't have phones, they would cut our power at night. So at, like, I wanna say, like, 9:30, 10-ish, they would cut the power. Like, with the breaker, they would turn them all off. Get our phones taken away, so you're just in the dark. So if you're in the shower and you haven't timed that correctly, you're taking a shower in the dark.
What was the purpose of that? Just to make sure you went to
To make
sleep?
sure we went to bed, like, no light's gonna keep us up. I don't know.
That seems extreme.
Yep, and then if you were, like, in the RA hall or the honor hall, like, specifically, honor hall, like, if you had, like, all A's or all A's and B's, you were put on a separate floor, and you got to keep your power and you got to keep your phone because you were deemed responsible enough.
Where did you land?
I did not land in the honor hall, no.
Okay.
I had to put my phone away a lot.
So, were there any standout stories from your time there that you can remember?
Mhm. I mean, many. I'm just trying to think of, like, which one to start with. Breaking my back, fever of 104, or
What?
the foot
You
washing.
broke all three, please. How did you break your
Oh.
back?
Yeah, so Shenandoah Valley Academy SVA does something called, like, a slip and slide thing where we had snuck out of the dorms, taken a giant tarp, hosed it, soaped it, put it on a hill, which most slip and slides are on a flat surface. This was on a very, very steep hill where you could not see the bottom. So I had gone down, and then my friend had gone down, and something like, we had gotten slammed by some bigger guys that had come out and wanted to join, and because the tarp is so big, there's still tarp on the flat ground at the bottom, and it's just a giant water soap pool.
Yeah.
And so we're struggling to get out, and it's so dark that you can't see the bottom. And so when they went down, they had no idea we were still on this tarp, and they were going fast and slammed right into us. Mhm. Yeah, so both the girl and I were both taken to the hospital. She had also had, some spinal injury, some possible brain. Me, I had a hyperextended elbow and a fractured back.
Ugh.
I don't think they've done it since. Because I've recently connected with someone that's currently at Shenandoah Valley Academy. They had reached out on social media, and I just, like, asked. I was like, "Are they is the slip and slide thing a thing?" And they're like, "No, there was, like, an accident many years ago, like, nobody does it anymore." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Good to know."
So, then you got super sick.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a fever of 104.7. They It was, like, a few days before banquet, and so my former mother had come to the school because of this fever, given me oxy to break the fever so I could stay, but it just, of course, spiked even higher to like 104 point, I want to say like 8, 9. But that the school policy to let you see a doctor is 105.
What?
So I was not allowed to see a doctor. They had the school nurse come, but I was not allowed to see a doctor because a fever at that high, something's wrong. Something's not right, especially close to 105. Like, that's your brain frying at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They took away my blankets. They turned off my heater. They took away my bed sheets. So I was just left with a mattress in a freezing cold room. And I was already cold because of the fever. And then they would bring me like cold soup. So I was just like freezing out of fever for days.
Oh, your mom didn't want you to go to a hospital or anything?
Nope, not until it met school policy.
Jeez. Okay, what was the last one you said?
Foot washing, I would say.
The foot washing, right. The inciting event that got you kicked out.
Suspended. Definitely, yeah, I got suspended.
Explain to people why you were washing each other's feet.
There was a story in the Bible where Jesus washed a woman's feet, and then the woman had also washed Jesus's feet and then dried them with her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Adventist church, I think that's kind of where the foot washing really stems from. They didn't have enough people, like it was for Vespers, it was a Friday night. And so we had gone to the school's church to do like the communion and to do the foot washing, and there weren't enough classmates for everybody to do it with me. So they had invited some families that were Adventist in the local community, because Newmarket is a tiny little town and the majority of that town is Adventist. And so they had some of them come over. Fortunately, nobody was my same gender or age, and so they didn't want that. So I got paired with like a 60-year-old man and had to wash his feet, and I felt very uncomfortable by that request. And so I went to my dean and I was like, I'm not washing a 60-year-old man's feet. It's inappropriate. I don't feel comfortable. And she was pretty much like, well, you can either do it or go back to your dorm and get a suspension. I took the suspension because I was not washing some random guy's feet. And I just in general don't like feet. Like I don't really want to touch people's feet.
Yeah.
It just was gross.
I don't blame you. Did they expect you to dry it with your hair?
No, thankfully
good.
not. Yes,
Like, please don't tell me.
Yeah, they would give out like little towels that were maybe like that big. I don't know, for you to dry off your feet, but you would dry their feet too.
Yeah.
Like you would pick up their foot, place it into the little bin of water, wash their feet, and then pick it up and bring it out and dry it off with a towel.
How often did this happen?
I want to say like every 8 weeks, 12 weeks, anytime there was communion. I don't remember the communion schedule. It was pretty well on rotation multiple times a year.
Okay. But not like an everyday, every week situation.
Not, thank God. I was fine with doing it with my own family. To some random stranger that I did not even know, please, no. No, thank you.
How did your former parents take this news of the suspension?
They were not happy. They picked me up and they were not happy. They were like, this is on your permanent record. I'm like, on my permanent record for not wanting to wash somebody's feet? Like, if I were to apply to a college later, if I had to explain a suspension for not wanting to wash feet, I don't think they would mind that.
Yeah. So at this point, your brain is pretty much checking out of the doctrine, and you're like, none of this makes sense. I don't even want to be here anymore. So what was the inciting moment when you realized, I have to escape and I have to escape tonight?
Yeah, I had kind of reached a breaking point mental health wise, and I was done. I just wanted everything to be done. I had tried telling teachers that clearly didn't work. CPS, that didn't work. I had told one of my pastors, she was a female pastor, which is very unheard of in the Adventist church, I know. I love her. She's great. She tried to reach out to CPS around that time, but apparently it was already an active investigation, so she couldn't add to the report.
How does that make sense?
Which is kind of weird. Like, you would think that more complaints on an open investigation would actually give the investigation more standing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. She could have reported it maybe like a month later when it was closed and have another investigation reopened. But at that time, like, it wasn't going to work.
So props to her for actually trying to report it to authorities, because that is something that does not happen often within these cult site control groups. They try to handle it internally, but she was like, "No, we need to go to the authorities with this."
Yeah, and I know that, I don't know if this happened after me leaving or before, but I do know, I really think it was before, but she had spoken with not only CPS, but she had also spoken with the church conference to see how they could minimize my former father's roles in the church. He worked on the praise team. And so they tried to find, she even spoke with church legal to see what they could do, and there wasn't a whole lot of options unless, like, he had been, like, arrested or something. So, I mean, the church wasn't gonna do anything.
Okay, so she did try to handle it
Oh,
internally.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And she had also spoken with me, like, her and I had gotten together a couple of times just so I could get out of the house and talk with her. Yeah, so that she had told me that they wouldn't let her add to the investigation. And then she just kind of asked me, she was like, they could do something if you said something. And I was like, I'm too scared because in the past that's backfired. And I shut down and I was like, you know what? Never mind, I can't do this. And then it was probably like another year later when I reached that breaking point and was like, I can't do this anymore. And I just, something inside of me snapped. And so I had gone over to an aunt's house who lived about maybe like a street and a half over. And I had told them that there was physical abuse, but I did not reveal any sexual abuse just because I didn't know how that response. I mean, already them hearing that I was being physically abused at home was already rough. And then hearing sexual abuse on top of that, I was not prepared to just fully tell everything right away. She had helped me, I want to say, for like a few weeks with like ideas, calling CPS, but again, it was already an active investigation, so they couldn't do anything for this time. Again, there were apparently two, like the odds of that happening. So, like when my pastor had reported the year before, active investigation. When my aunt had reported a year later, still an active investigation, but they were two separates. I don't know, but no one ever came to the door. So how are you supposed to be investigating if you're not coming to the house?
Was this the sister of mom or dad?
She technically wasn't a sister. She was technically a cousin on my dad's side. But I mean, age-wise, like, I just had always called her my aunt.
And nobody in your family saw the bruises, saw the marks, had questions?
They had seen bruises and marks and scrapes, but they had always believed what my former mother was telling them and never really questioned it. Because I mean, think about it. Like, family is not going to want to jump to the worst case scenario. They're not going to want to jump to thinking that there's something absolutely horrific
Yeah.
happening that they're unaware of. I wouldn't want to jump to that. Like, if somebody told me, like, if I have like a sister and their kid came to me and was like, "Hey, this is what my dad's doing." I've got to be honest, a little part of me would be like, "What?" Like, you don't want, or like if I saw bruises, like, you don't want to automatically assume the worst, and it makes sense.
I can see that, unless they've also experienced abuse.
Mhm.
It's hard for people to wrap their brains around it unless they've also experienced something similar and they can relate. So, when you talked to your aunt, what was her reaction?
Her reaction was supportive at first, I would say. Like wanting to call CPS, wanting to be around me as much as possible, so I like helped her daughter like move in at her college apartment. I had done a lot of things. I started going over there for like meals because they were like, You're tiny and you need to be fed." So they started feeding me like actual food. I spent a lot of time there, a lot of time there. But I think at that point, and I don't know why, but she ended up calling my former mother and telling her what I had revealed. And
God,
I,
people are so. Ah.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I get so frustrated. I'm like,
I know. And I still am unclear if she did this because she chose not to believe me anymore, or if she just didn't know what other options there were and thought that maybe talking with my former mother would do something.
God, it doesn't do anything. It makes it
It
worse.
just put the things back in the hands of the abusers.
So what happened after this phone call?
I watched this phone call happening. When my former mother got that call, she was like, "Oh, it's your aunt, like, calling, like, I'm gonna go talk with her outside," and I'm like, "Cool." I'm watching from the kitchen window, and I can just see my former mother, like, pacing back and forth and looking very serious, and I knew, like, I had this gut feeling. I was like, "Damn it.
Yeah.
I know exactly what this call is." And she came in, my former mother, after the call ended, she came into the house and she literally just looks at me and she's like, "You had no right to share any of this. We're gonna call your father." Because my father was away in Florida on a business trip at this time. And so we had to wait till the evening for him to call. So my former mother was just with me all day. I didn't have really much of alone time. And he had called, and my former mother told him what had happened and what I had revealed. And he was like, "Put her on the phone." So my former mom puts me on the phone, and he just immediately was like, "When I get home, you are dead." I'm gonna believe that. Every single threat that he had made previous came true. He said he was gonna hit me, did it. He said he was gonna drag me, did it. He said he was gonna rape me, he did it. Him killing me, really not that big of a stretch.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
Yeah. I don't even remember what I said to him. I think I just said, "Okay," and handed the phone back to my mom. I was just in so much shock hearing that my life was being threatened,
Yeah.
and I believed him completely. The tone in his voice did not prove that he was joking, that he was being facetious, or that he was exaggerating. Like, it was factual. The tone was factual.
And when was he supposed to be home?
Like a few days, maybe a week.
So what did you do?
Directly after the call, my former mother went to bed. She told me to go to bed. And she had taken away my phone, so I didn't have my phone, I didn't have my computer, so she took those things away. However, I did have a secret iPad stuffed between the bed frame and the mattress. It was a cracked and shattered iPad, but it worked. And I knew that, like, if I kept things out of view from my former mother, she wouldn't have thought to take it, which ended up working. So I downloaded Snapchat on there because years before, I want to say maybe like a year before, one of my good friends, Sarah, who also grew up Adventist and is no longer Adventist anymore, her and I would do a lot of like fun photography outings. Like, we were both big fans of photography. So her and I would go out, take photos, and I remember her just telling me one day where she was like, "If anything at home," because I never disclosed to her what was happening, but I think she knew. She definitely knew. And she just kind of told me, she was like, "If anything at home ever gets to a point, you always have a place with me on my couch in Savannah, Georgia." And I was just like, "Oh, haha, thanks. Sure." And I just like stored that in my brain. And so I had downloaded Snapchat that night, and I had reached out, and I had to contact her friend, Tiffany, because Sarah had deleted Snapchat. So I texted Tiffany and I was like, "Tiffany, like, can you text Sarah and have her re-download Snapchat?" And she was like, "Sure." So I talked with Sarah and I'm like, "Remember when you offered your couch?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, it got to a point and I might really need your couch." And so we started hatching that plan.
And so how long before you made the plan and then you left?
I want to say we made at least the initial agreement that I would be running away soon that night, that same night that my former father had made the threat on the phone.
And then you left.
The next day, I want to say we just like continued to talk back and forth on like what this would look like. And we had a group chat with Tiffany in it because Sarah was already in Georgia. I didn't have a car. So Tiffany had volunteered and was like, "I can pick you up and we can go and I will drive you down to Savannah, Georgia. But we had to then figure out logistics, like, what is the legal trouble that I could get in, deal with running away? And I was like, well, I'm 18. Technically, legally, I can leave, but they would not
Yeah.
let me leave if I asked. Like, if I had, and this is something like, when I shared my story on social media, people get so bent out of shape with this, is they'll be like, oh, well, you were 18. That's not running away. That's moving out. It's running away if you would not have been allowed to leave. Like, if I had gone to my former mother and said, hey, I want to move out, that would not have worked. If I had gone to my former father and said, I'm leaving today, I would have been locked in the basement. Like, there was no option other than disappearing, completely disappearing. In the middle of the night, that was really my only option, because nothing else would have been approved.
Yeah. So what did you take with you?
When I ran, like, what did I pack?
Yeah.
Oh, I packed, what did I do? I kept a notebook. So Sarah had kind of given me, like, when we were talking still on Snapchat, she had kind of, like, given me some ideas. She was like, you need your IDs, like, you need your birth certificate, like, you need as many legal documents as you can, because without those, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
And so I had found the folder that my former father had, and I grabbed that and hid that in my room. Clothes, I knew it was going to be hot in Savannah. It was the summer. It was June, so it was going to be boiling in Georgia. So I didn't pack jeans. I just packed shorts, t-shirts, basic things. Obviously toothbrush, toothpaste, a charger for the iPad. I packed that, and I kept a notebook because I knew that with Apple devices, like, I didn't know if any of my devices were being tracked. I just didn't know. And so I knew that I would be erasing it completely and recreating a new Apple ID account. And so I wrote down every single phone number and name in my contacts list, because my iPad had the same contact amount that my phone had. They were paired.
Yeah.
So I wrote down everything.
And then you get to Georgia. And then
I
what?
know, there's still so much. Wait.
Okay, so what happened? I'm skipping ahead.
Because I still went to church the day before running away.
You went to church the day before running away?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. This is a good place to end. It's a cliffhanger moment. Everyone's like, what the hell? Shalice, why are you doing this to us? I'm sorry. Love you guys. Let's just do a quick Linda listen. We'll do your handles and then we'll sign out.
Linda, listen. I've been telling the truth the whole time. You just didn't want to hear it.
I love that with conviction. Okay, so how can people find you and support you? Drop your handles.
My TikTok is charlie.hayes on that app. And then on Instagram, it is charliehayes_, and there's no E in Charlie.
Perfect. This has been so great speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to keep going. I'm so anxious. I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, how did you escape? So this will be great. Do you have any final thoughts before we go into the next episode?
Buckle up, wear a seatbelt, put a helmet on.
Stay safe, y'all. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing today.
Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Yeah. Okay, guys, if you're listening, leave those words of encouragement down below for Charlie. It means so much to us, to our guests. Boosts the algorithm, even if it's an emoji. It's the best way to support the podcast for free. If you do want to support monetarily, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/cults to consciousness. We have some merch at cultstoconsciousness.com. And if you want shorter clips of the show, just to check out some of our previous guests, you can find our clips channel in the description, as well as all the links to Charlie's social media. And if you like this video, I'll link 2 more down here below. If you're just now watching this, make sure to tune in for part 2 coming soon. Subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss it. And until next time, follow your highest excitement, be conscious, and be well.